All right. So I will make the case that at absolute best, and this is at absolute best, Helen Keller was able to say and comprehend a few words and short phrases. All the advanced speech she gave was trained and rehearsed for her by her trainer and teacher, Anne Sullivan, almost like a parrot more than a person.
Wow.
And so I will say this. She went blind and deaf at 19 months old. Do you know what the prognosis is for children who go blind and deaf at 19 months old in the year 2020 as opposed to 125 years ago? It's that they will never be able to function in society. They will never be able to communicate. They will not be able to engage in normal behavior. There is no hope. You just have to mitigate it. I looked up a lot of reviews of people who talk about this kind of thing, who work with blind, deaf people. And what they say is that you're way more likely to have to engage with them lashing out violently at you because of confusion. And, you know, it's sad. They're totally distanced from reality. And so they obviously lash out. You're way more likely to engage in that kind of behavior from these patients than you are them trying to read, because they can't read. There's a fundamental level of perception that you need in order to engage with anyone on any meaningful level, and that includes both audio and visual. You know, you don't need both, because
I never thought of this.
There are deaf people who can communicate, and there are blind people who can communicate, but that's only because blind people take advantage of audio. Deaf people take advantage of visual. That's the only reason that it's able to be done. Is it a coincidence that in all of human history, there have been blind, deaf people? Not once in human history, other than Helen Keller, have they been able to engage with someone like this and speak in this way. And also, and you may say to me, "Oh, there was someone 50 years prior to Helen Keller that was also a taught blind, deaf person." That person is even less credible than Helen Keller. They literally are. I went on a deep fucking dive of this. And so,
I can't believe you're shitting on him. This is awesome.
So I'm saying it's simple. It is far more likely that she is a hoax than it is likely that of all blind, deaf people throughout human history, she is the only one that was capable of speech. And not only speech, because remember this is not purported that she was able to recognize water. It was purported that she was a very political person with a lot of astute observations about the goings on in society. And what you don't know is that Anne Sullivan, her teacher, isn't it remarkable that all of Helen Keller's political beliefs align exactly with those of Anne Sullivan, her teacher? That's weird. It's weird that she finds this one woman, teaches her how to say a couple words. There are literally speeches, political speeches of Helen Keller that you can find where the actual speech is Anne Sullivan standing there talking with Helen Keller's hand moving in her hand.
Oh,
and you know,
it's just like Joe Biden.
It's almost like Joe Biden. I will say this. There was an established way that Anne Sullivan said that Helen Keller communicated, and that was to make single measures, single positions in the hand of Anne Sullivan that meant different letters. Yet in all of these speeches, Helen Keller is furiously signing, not that furious because she's retarded, and what it turns out is that Anne Sullivan is speaking at a normal pace, a normal everything, giving normal speeches about politics, her beliefs, everything. Hey, try and speak one sentence to me, Kyle, where instead of saying the words out to me, you spell them out. And not even with your hand, spell them out with your mouth. How long does it take? Say, "Hello, my name is Kyle," with just the letters.
Fuck space YOU.
All right.
Oh my
God. How much longer that took than saying,
he's making great
How dare you
points
disparage
here.
the miracle worker?
No,
Are you fucking kidding me? Helen Keller was a scam?
That's Patty Duke,
Helen
motherfucker.
Unbelievable.
Do you think there's one blind deaf person that's ever achieved this? And not only that, she mimics the exact political views of her teacher, which are very, extremist views in a lot of situations, especially for the time. You think that's a coincidence? You think that's real? You think that now? So in the last 120 years, no other deafblind people have been able to be reached this way. No other ones. All the advancements in science, all the advancements in everything, none of them are reached. That's fucking crazy. Isn't that weird?
Where's Anne Sullivan?
Anne Sullivan's dead. Oh,
you got to dig her ass up. Get to the bottom of this.
Dig those hands out. What a great point. So Anne Sullivan used to talk at these things. She would be the voice of Helen Keller allegedly, and Helen was supposed to be talking to her, and she would talk in a normal cadence.
Yes, and she would speak.
So that's impossible from what you just demonstrated, because she's getting one letter at a time. That would be a long, drawn-out speech.
Yes.
What's hilarious?
Is it possible to have shorthand like a court reporter?
She can't even see or hear. You think she's doing
I love this. I love this.
And so I
Fuck
maintain
Helen Keller.
I
Fuck her in
maintain
the ass.
Yeah.
My question, Taylor,
this bitch has been retarded from the start, and we've all been bamboozled.
is Helen Keller even in on the ruse, or is she just playing palm tickle games the whole time, unaware that there's a speech happening?
Of course, she's not in on the roof. She's retarded.
If she's retarded,
Maybe she's the mastermind.
Also, here's another thing. The big thing from the miracle worker was the scene where Helen Keller and her retard voice like what, and saying water on there. There's no way to falsify that claim. She doesn't know if water means water. She doesn't know if water means wet. She doesn't know if water means cold. She doesn't know if it means the sensation of water rolling over her fingers. There's no way to falsify what she could possibly mean by expressing that term. And so for that reason, I say it is absolutely 100% verified based on this 2-page document I made earlier today that Helen Keller was a fucking retard, and she absolutely was used by Anne Sullivan. And let me add to this, she came from a very, very wealthy family, and her parents did not want to accept that she was retarded. They were very afraid of that, and so they paid Anne Sullivan.
We saw that in the movie where she would go around and just smash things on the table and take everyone's food like an animal.
Exactly. And so her parents were desperate. They would pay any amount to any teacher. You think Anne Sullivan was the first teacher that came in there? No, there were tons of teachers that came in prior that said, yeah, I'm sorry, she doesn't have a lot of mental
screaming.
She can't engage with reality, unfortunately. It is very sad. It's a very sad story. But that doesn't change the fact that she had rich parents who were heavily invested in her not being a mental midget. And they used Anne Sullivan, who then used Helen Keller to both raise money for her own political causes and espouse the same beliefs that she held in order to get publicity. Something else you don't know about her. She did not get publicity and become famous after all of her stuff, all of her speeches. She was a novelty way before that. She was a novelty way prior to any of this. Just when she went to an all-girls school who could obviously speak and see and hear, that was like a national news story in the early 1900s. Oh my God, she's really going to school with these people. How can you graduate school in 4 years if not only can you not go back and reread things and reanalyze things without someone giving it to you, but you also have the ability to read at when a paragraph takes 5 hours to read, you're not graduating the same time. This shit is so absurd. It is so absurd on its fucking
So why
face.
would they give her like a diploma? Because didn't she get a university diploma also? And
she was famous. She was famous.
Yeah,
and
yeah. So what motive would the university have? Publicity for like graduating this fucking retard?
Yeah.
So eloquently put it.
It sounds to me like what you're saying
terrible.
Is Helen Keller secret genius.
Secret retard, and there we go. There's
Wow. I am stunned. Dude, that was fucking concise. I give it to you.
Thank you.
Done.
She's a retard. So there's my first one. The Einstein one's even better.
But yeah,
Let's do it, man. We got to get us a little retarded kid.
Does that
One
link
more
up
thing.
for you
Wouldn't
boys?
we have? You're right. Wouldn't we have seen more deaf, blind people excelling, especially in this day and age? You look at people with disabilities that kept them out of any type of social interaction even a few decades ago, and now people are living perfectly well in society with certain mental problems, and you would think you'd get one more Helen Keller who would be deaf and blind and going around and touring, and
it's almost like it's almost like it was easier to bullshit people 130 years ago. It's almost that's what
very good.
No,
My
because what
God.
you're describing is exactly what they did with Coco, the gorilla. It would Coco can't speak at all. She just makes symbols, and the bitch, her Anne Sullivan, just says what she thinks Coco means. It's the same exact thing.
I was absolutely devastated when I deep dived
Still
into
need
Coco.
access.
I was like, oh no, this gorilla wasn't talking. I loved that story. I loved it so much.
It's adorable with the kitten. It puts the hat on and shit like that. So, I'm fine with Coco.
You know something else with Coco is that she had a fixation on nipples and breasts. And so there were people who took out like cases against the zoo because like some chick reporter would show up and be like, I'm here to talk to Coco. And then some zookeeper would be like, yeah, she likes it when you pop your tits out. And like there were newscasters who do that. So Coco could like grab the nip or something. And so,
nice. Coco.
Sexual harassment.
I wish you had made your conspiracy theory that Coco was in fact not a gorilla, but a man in a gorilla suit.
No, that would be something.
Now that would be fucking hilarious if a guy dressed up as a fucking gorilla and had perfect sign language. I remember watching that movie in school and being taught about the miracle worker and Helen Keller.
Yeah.
And it hurts to come to the realization that, yes, she was a fraud. Like, he's brought this up before, and I was like, you're just an asshole. You're just an asshole. She's an inspirational story.
My childhood.
But if he's to be believed, I've done zero research on my own, that no one has ever done what she did, then you're left with two options. Either she's either a genius or a retard. It's literally one or the other. Like, she's like either the smartest deaf-blind person that's ever existed. Like, if she'd had her senses, she'd have been Einstein. Yeah. Maybe not Einstein, because apparently he's about to disprove Einstein. But
right.
or she in fact was a literal retarded person.
I think it's like when like Anne Sullivan must have been like with Helen, thinking it was like a dog. You ever see people online? They're like, "Look, my dog," and it goes, "Oh, it's saying I love you."
Yeah,
my dog said I love you. It's like, no, your stupid dog didn't say I love you.
Right, it made 3 syllables. I'll give you that.
Shit or something.
Instead, it's more like this, and she's like, she says that capitalism is inherently flawed, folks.
Yeah. I don't know.
Let me read you a supposed quote from Helen.
Oh, okay. I would like to hear a quote from the great Ms. Keller.
Did she ever get married? That would be interesting.
Oh, God.
From her that lines up exactly with the beliefs of her teacher. It is...
It's got fucking paper.
When we watched that movie in junior high, the only thing I remember is the 20-minute speech our teacher gave us about how if anyone laughed at the end of the movie, how much, like, he had a whole chart on this is how, if you snicker, this is how much trouble you're going to get in.
Yeah.
All right, man.
That.
We don't,
God,
you are showing us this movie. We don't want to see it.
Yeah.
Can I just conjugate verbs in the outside, please?
It was a great way to find out who was going to be a comic in the room.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's going to be a comic.
He sat on my desk during the entire movie.
I believe that.
Your balls are on my hand, dude. He's like, tell your parents, they're not going to care. You're right. Can I at least watch? It sounds funny. What's going? No, you may not watch.
Try watching that movie as a 16-year-old and not cracking the fuck up. It's so funny.
Yeah, there's no way.
So, can we walk out of that class like drunks, like just silent? That was the good shit, man. That was the good shit.
So tell me if you think this seems more likely to have come from Anne Sullivan, her teacher, who is very politically motivated, or more likely to come from a person, the only person in human history, blind, deaf, and mostly dumb, that can't that can actually
communicate. Wizard.
Yeah. First, here's Helen Keller's quote, translated by Anne Sullivan. Our worst foes are ignorance, poverty, and the unconscious cruelty of our commercial society.
Oh, fuck.
These are the causes. These are the causes of blindness. These are the enemies which destroy the sight of children and workmen and undermine the health of mankind. Does that seem like a blind, deaf person?
Nah.
Helen Keller said that?
How long did it take her to say it? How many months did it take her to say that?
She was a college graduate, Taylor. She speaks like that.
Anne Sullivan said that shit. I'm throwing this in the finished box. I win.
Oh my God.
Either that retard was more eloquent than all of us combined.
It's a slam dunk, my friend.
Or the more likely thing is that she was manipulated and used. So just saying.